ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. Dolphins, Chargers, big AFC matchup between two teams vying for playoff. Really eyeballing the playoffs, because even the Dolphins at this point, they're free falling right now. Even they're not a lock to make the postseason. You know, this was a team that at one point was 8-3, playing excellent football. Offense is high powered, scoring a bunch of points. Defense is doing a yeoman-like job of getting it done. And look, at some point, you're going to give up points, but as long as your offense is doing what their offense was doing earlier in the season, a great case in point, they go on the road to Detroit. I think they gave up like 31 in that game, but they scored like 34 and they won. You know, I think they did the same exact thing to the Bears, you know, scored a bunch of points. Bears scored a bunch of points, but they scored enough and they won. And so they've been getting it done this season, but Tua stunk it up the last 2 weeks against two quality ball clubs. And these are the types of games that you start to develop either a trust or a lack thereof in certain teams that you think have a chance to compete at a high level. And the Dolphins were one of those teams that started to kind of sneak their way into that AFC conversation. When you have that conversation of who's the best of the best in the AFC, who do you think ultimately can represent the conference in the Super Bowl, it usually starts with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. It moves its way to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are probably right there directly after the Chiefs, if not before them, depending on who you talk to. But I'd still am a Mahomes and Chiefs guy until somebody knocks them off the throne. And there isn't an AFC championship game being played in Arrowhead. I'm sticking with the Mahomes Chiefs group until that's no longer a thing. And so it's usually those three teams. And then anybody else is kind of like on the back burner. And we started to have conversations, little, rumblings and grumblings, little murmurs. Maybe we should include the Dolphins in this discussion. They already beat the Buffalo Bills once, right? They can score with the Chiefs, right? So they should be in there. They took a team into Cincinnati, and now the Bengals weren't playing the kind of football that they're playing now. Then they took a banged-up Dolphins team with Tua coming off of a serious injury the week before, and he got injured in that game, left the field, and still had a chance in that game with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. So you're looking at the Dolphins, and you're starting to think, maybe we should add them into the conversation. And the last 2 weeks have been eye-opening in terms of the Miami Dolphins. Put a pin in that, because we'll come back to the Dolphins. I want to first start with the Chargers. They get it done tonight, by the way, 23-17 over the Miami Dolphins through the Los Angeles Chargers, improved to 7-6 on the season, which puts them now in the 7 seed. If the playoffs started today, which they don't, now I kind of hate that phrase because the playoffs don't start today. Okay, the playoffs don't start today. There's another game that has to be played for Week 14 to be put into the books, and we move on to Week 15. So, and if the New England Patriots win that game, they are the 7 seed. So there's still a lot of jockeying for position. There's still a lot left to be settled. So it's good to see your name. And I've said this as a fan, it's good to see your team's logo in the playoff category instead of in the hunt. But it doesn't mean jack diddly poo squat in Week 14. All it means is you've done enough work to put yourself in a position to have a chance to play bonus football. Doesn't mean you're actually going to play it. So these final 4 weeks of the season are going to be massive. So what the Chargers have effectively done, and we're used to being here with the Chargers, this is not uncharted territory. We've seen this team get to this point and fall the hell apart. We've seen this team get to this point and, play up and down football. And, I kind of pseudo called this. I didn't pick them. And I thought about it, and you guys watched the show on Friday, and I told you this is the type of game the Chargers win. Last week was the type of game they lose. They lost. I said, this is the type of game that they win. I just didn't have the balls to pick them because I'm sick and tired of losing games behind picking the Chargers. I've done enough of that. So I feel I'm not even upset that they won the game tonight because I'd much rather lose the game not picking the Chargers than lose the game picking the Chargers and have them shit on me as they've done so many times in the past with me having this false belief in them. And so I'm just not willing to do that anymore. But I've watched enough Chargers football to know. And the head coaches may change. Some of the players may change. The quarterback may change. But it's still the same shit. Different toilet. That's all. Different season. Still the same Chargers. This is the kind of game that they win. When you don't expect it, when you say, hey, the opponent that they're playing is better than them. They've got too many injuries. Everything's stacked against them. When you count them out, this is when they rise up and play some of their best football. And you can't explain it. Because I still don't know how in the hell at one point in this game, Tua Tagovailoa was 3 of 17. And I still don't know how he ended up 10 of 28 against this Chargers defense with no Derwin James and no Joey Bosa and no nickel corner, Bryce Callahan. I don't know how they played so poorly on offense, how the Chargers, who have one of the worst rush defenses in football, didn't get gashed on the ground by a team that's supposed to be able to run the football with a head coach with a rushing offense background coming from the Shanahan tree, which is a staple of what they want to do, running the zone inside and outside. I was shocked that the game plan didn't center. The first possession was 3 Tua passes, incomplete, punt. I did not think that would be the game plan, but yet it was. And credit to the Chargers, or as a wise man once said, credit to them. Credit to them for stepping up and getting the job done. If the Dolphins are going to give you an opportunity to not have to defend the run, if they're going to give you an opportunity to be able to play the kind of game that you played tonight, because the Chargers have faults. And one of the biggest faults that they have is they don't run the football on offense and they don't stop the run on defense. And it didn't feel like the Dolphins took advantage of either one of those things. Justin Herbert threw the football 51 times tonight. In a close ball game, that is inexcusable. But that's what the Chargers do. They put it all on the shoulders of Jay Herbo. And they say, go win it for us, big fella. And he did that tonight. He was spectacular. But that's not sustainable against the better teams in the conference, which we thought the Dolphins were one of them. But I'm starting to sour on the Miami Dolphins, especially when they're away from home. And another thing, this is what happens to teams when they get home cooking early on in the season. They take advantage of it. Now their asses had to go on the road and play 3 straight road games. They're going to Buffalo next week. I surmise that they're going to lose that game as well. Buffalo's out for revenge. And it's going to be cold. And revenge is a dish best served ice cold. And the Bills look like they're going to be cold-blooded. And if they are, that's 3 straight losses for the Dolphins on the road. And newsflash to the Dolphins, the likelihood is you won't be playing any home playoff games. So you better start figuring out how to win on the road, or else you may not be in the postseason playing bonus football when it's all said and done, because there are teams like the New England Patriots that are hovering around. They've got this helicopter thing going. They're like vultures circling around these playoff spots. Like, hey, who don't want theirs? We'll take it. The Chargers are another one of those teams. They're now in right now, but the Jets, don't count the Jets out. I watched that game against Buffalo today. Like, that's still a strong defensive football team. And if you get caught slipping, like if the Chargers play the Jets, I think the Jets could beat them, because the Jets aren't going to allow Justin Herbert to do what he did tonight, which is throw essentially 51 times and complete damn near 70% of his passes. for over 350, 60 yards and kind of control the game. The Jets aren't allowing him to do that shit. So it'll be interesting to see what the Chargers are able to do. But tonight, they were able to get away with that. They were able to get away with no run game, which is pretty much who they've been this season. Stands from maybe one or two contests. You know, the biggest being the Browns game where out of nowhere, Austin Eckler almost ran for 200 yards. But that's not who they are. They are a pass-first team. They're a pass-second team. They're a pass-third team. They're a Justin Herbert-led operation. And they put too much on his shoulders, I feel like. They need to run the football more. And they didn't do it at all tonight. They didn't even try, really, tonight to run the football. I'm actually interested in how many rushes. Austin Eckler had 15 rushes tonight. 15 rushes for Austin Eckler. They didn't really have to defend the run. How many times did the Dolphins run the football? The Dolphins ran it 19 times total. Okay. And honestly, the average isn't what it appears to be because it's 19 rushes for 92 yards, which is almost 5 yards a carry, which is what you would expect a Chargers defense to give up on the ground. But 3 rushes for 28 yards for Tua really takes that number and gives it life. It gives that average volume. It gives it a fullness that really wasn't there in the game. So Raheem Mostert 11 for 37 and Jeff Wilson I thought was going to be the guy, and he was running it effectively before he hurt his hip. He was 4 carries, 26 yards. To me, he was the guy that was going. And since he's come over from San Francisco, when they've had success on the ground, it's really been Jeff Wilson. He was, to me, the guy that was going to have to be the one that hurt the Chargers tonight because of his running style. And it looked like he was well on his way to doing that. And then the hip injury really, changed the way they were able to run the football or lack thereof. But the Chargers are just a fascinating team because offensively, Justin Herbert is one of the best talents in the league. He makes throws every week that just make you say, oh my God. Jaw-dropping, awe-inducing throws where you just go, what the hell was that? Oh my God, how did he make that throw? He's got weapons when they're healthy. It looks like they may be finally getting some health on their side offensively at the skill positions. I think this is the first game that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both started and finished, if you can believe that. 14 weeks in, it took them 14 weeks for them to play a full game together, start to finish. Gerald Everett has been a stud for them at the tight end position. He was in the lineup again tonight. And you always have to say that with the Chargers because it just always seems like someone else is hurt. Austin Eckler is Mr. Do-It-All for that offense. Catches it, runs it, does, pass protection. He does it all. And Josh Palmer, the biggest beneficiary of all the injuries to the receivers this year was Josh Palmer because it forced him to have to grow up this season. And he responded the way that if you're a Chargers fan, you hoped he would respond to that. And so they've got a good group of guys for Justin Herbert to get the football to. They still could use an infusion of speed within that receiver group, which is what Jalen Guyton provided for them. But again, he's been gone since like week 1, week 2. That said, tonight was another example of Justin Herbert, which is why we want to see him in the playoffs. Him strapping his team to his back and willing them to a victory. The run late in the game, which was pretty much the end for the Dolphins. They needed to stop there. They needed to force a long field goal and hope that they missed. Justin Herbert takes off and runs. He makes a throw to Keenan Allen, on a third down where you just go, what the hell? How did that whistle by the defender? Like, Allen literally didn't have to do anything but just do this. And the ball literally hit him right in his hands. Like, Herbert is ridiculous. The defense, I thought, played really well. Like, I was shocked at how well they played, especially stopping the run, considering that they've been one of the worst in the league at doing that. I was shocked at how well they stopped it. But I was also shocked at how well they were able to contain Jalen Waddle, because Tyreek Hill is always going to get his, no matter what you try to do. And he did it with a bum ankle, essentially. Still got a 50, 60-yard catch with a bum ankle. Like, he's going to get his. The guy that is the X factor to me is Jalen Waddle, because you know what Hill's about. You know what he's going to do. If Waddle blesses you too, it's just tough to stop their offense, because it was the same thing in Kansas City. You had to pick your poison. Either you want the slow death of Travis Kelce for 11 catches, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns, or you wanted the quick, immediate death. Just take me out back, put 2 in my dome, and put me out of my misery. And that's Tyreek Hill, 3 catches, 167 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like, you had to pick your poison. Or Tyreek could go for 7 catches, 167 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Whatever you want, you can get it, but you had to pick your poison. And my choice of death with the Chiefs was always, hey, give me Travis Kelce, because a drive might stall out with Kelce nickel and diming me. With Tyreek, it's immediate. I don't even get a chance to defend myself. It's the same thing with the Dolphins. He's going to get his. You're not going to stop him. But if he doesn't have a tag team partner, if Waddle doesn't join him in the fun, then you got a chance to hold the Dolphins under 30, under 27, under 24, and now you got a chance to beat them. Waddle jumps in the fray. Now they're scoring 27, 30, and now it might be a little bit out of your reach and out of your range where you're comfortable. And so their ability to really shut down Jalen Waddle, to me, was the story of this game. They pretty much kept him quiet and non-existent. Another thing was, a lot of people make a big deal out of the lack of home field environment. It's tired at this point. We know, okay, we get it. The Rams don't have a home field advantage. The Chargers don't have a home field advantage. We get it. We understand. Okay. That said, I think it only really starts to affect you postseason time. Like regular season games, whatever. It is what it is. You want an advantage. If you work hard all season long to get a home playoff game, you want an advantage. You don't want to be going silent count in a playoff game where you earn the right to play that game at home. However, I thought there was an advantage tonight that no one talked about, where the Chargers play at SoFi all the time. So they have adjusted to looking up and locating and tracking the football. How many times did it feel like the Dolphins lost the ball in the air, didn't know where it was, couldn't see it? Guys, I thought there were at least 2 or 3 times where if they saw the football, whether they didn't pick it up in the air, didn't know to let it loose, threw it in their direction, or they just couldn't see it, lost it in the lights. There's a lot of shit going on reportedly up in the rafters up there. I don't know what was what, but there was at least 2 Tyreek Hill, balls where he had no clue where it was. Jalen Waddle at the very end of this game, I thought had a chance. That ball literally landed right on his outside shoulder. It's a perfectly thrown ball. If he finds that football, that's 1st and goal, probably inside the 10 at around the 8-yard line, if not a touchdown. He has no idea where the ball is. So I thought that was something else that was really odd to me, is that there were too many instances. There's a deep post. It wasn't a great ball by Tua, but there have been a lot of balls that haven't been great by Tua this year that Tyreek Hill has still gone and tracked down and made it a touchdown anyway, or a big grab anyway. That looked like one of those balls. Wasn't the greatest throw in the world, but if Tyreek Hill sees it, he tracks it, and it's one-on-one with that safety. I think it was a safety over the top. He's cooking his ass. If he catches that football, there's no way that safety's getting Tyreek Hill on the ground. That's a touchdown. That should have been a touchdown. That was not a great ball by Tua, but Tua struggled tonight. And we'll talk about him in a second. But I was really impressed with the Chargers' ability to really neutralize the Jalen Waddle and make Mike Gesicki non-existent, and really put the onus on Tyreek Hill with a bum ankle to try to do it by himself. And they weren't allowing it. So I thought it was a really solid performance in all phases of the game by the Chargers. This was a game they had to get. They couldn't afford to lose this game and drop to 6-7 if they were serious about making the playoffs. They're not out of the woods yet. Let's see what the Chargers' remaining schedule looks like, because I still don't trust them. I really, truly don't. They anger me. They frustrate me to no end. They have the Titans at home next week. they'll probably lose that game. That's a game that they would lose. And with Derrick Henry and company, they're struggling. They're going to do the thing that they always do. And if I'm the Chargers, you got to load up and stop the run and force the Titans to beat you throwing the football. And if they can't do that, then you should beat them. But you're going to get a heavy dose. Unlike the Dolphins tonight, you're going to get a heavy dose of Derrick Henry next week. Then they got the Colts. Then they got the Rams. And, I mean, they should win all 4 of these games. I mean, really, the Titans game, that's not they should win that game, but it's a winnable game. I'll say that. The rest of those games, they should win all 3 of them. Like, they shouldn't win. They should be no less than 10-7. And somehow, some way, I guarantee you they're going to lose 2 out of these final 4 games. That's the Charger way. They have no business losing to Indy, the Rams, or the Broncos. Now, the final game against Denver is family business. You can throw the records out the window. The Chargers or the Broncos would love nothing more than to spoil the Chargers' opportunity to make the playoffs on their way out. But the Chargers that I've come to know and love, they're going to blow 2 of these games. They should win all 4 of these, to be honest with you. They should finish this season 11-6. I mean, this is set up for them. But they're going to lose 2 of these games. I think they're going to lose to the Titans next week. And I'd say they'll probably lose to a team like the Rams. I mean, maybe the Broncos. I don't know. I just don't trust the Chargers, man. And I'm dying to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs. I'm dying to see it because I know this kid is ready. And that moment won't be too big for him. But they got to do their part. But they did it tonight. The supporting cast did it tonight. I don't always love some of the decisions by Brandon Staley early in the game. I know that's his MO, is to be aggressive. We've gotten all the way down here. You know something that really irks me with the Chargers as well? I just need to say this. Sometimes I feel like they go tempo unnecessarily. Okay, tempo is exactly that. It's a ploy to change the pace of the game. And if you think it's in your favor to go faster, so be it. Okay. But once you get into the red zone, once you get inside the 10, I need you to slow down. Okay. You've achieved the goal, which was to change the tempo and the pace of the game and have it be an advantage to get you down the field. You've done that effectively. Now you're in the most important portion of the field. Okay. Now everything is magnified and I need hyper focus. That said, huddle up. Okay. Make substitutions if necessary. Get your best play calls. I need everything to be the way that it should be for us to be successful. Remember the week 2 game against the Chiefs? When they had no huddle down the field. It worked to perfection. You get a big gain from Gerald Everett inside the 5-yard line. He's begging out of the game. They tell him to stay in as if, hey, bro, it's just a run play. We don't need you to do anything. We just don't want to sub. Stay in there. We're not throwing it to you. You're good. You're on the back side of this play. You got nothing to worry about. That's how they told him to stay in the game, like they weren't going to utilize him. And then Justin Herbert throws the football to him in hurry-up mode for what? Throws a pick 6. They lose the game because of that pick 6. There were other plays, i.e., Asante Samuel dropping 2 picks, including one that would have been a pick 6 for sure, that would have taken points off the board for the Chiefs. It put it directly on the board for the Chargers, but that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is, why are you going tempo in the red zone? You've already gotten where you wanted to go. Now, I need you to focus in on getting the best 3 play calls. If it takes that many, 4 for the Chargers sometimes. They like to go for it as they did tonight and didn't get it. But I need your best play calls. I need hyper focus from all 11 guys on the field. We don't need to be rushing now. Okay? We got down here. Now we need to execute. They did it again tonight. They get down there and they're in a rush and Lindsley gets down there and he snaps the ball as soon as he gets, and they get an infraction. Like, why are we rushing? Slow down. Execute. You got Justin Herbert. You got Mike Williams. You got Keenan Allen. You got Gerald Everett. You got Austin Eckler. You got guys that are playmakers. Execute down there. No need to rush. You've already used tempo to get you down here. Now execute. I just think that's something that just bothers me with them, is they don't know how to change those tempos. They don't know when to say when. And to me, that's the problem with Brandon Staley as a head coach, is he's an extremist. Like, there's no middle ground with him. It's one end of the spectrum or the other. Either I'm going for it no matter what, or I'm not going to go for it at all and I'm going to be conservative. Like, there's no middle ground. You're like, okay, I'm shocked he's not going for it here. This is his move. Nope, he's going to go the conservative route right now. But then there are times where you're like, hey, bro, just take the points. And he's like, nah, we got down here. I think we should go for it, like tonight or on the first possession. And they don't get anything out of it. Same thing with the tempo. Like, okay, it's great for the tempo to work and it to get you down. Okay, now stop. Okay, now you're down here. Now I need you to get the right play calls. Everybody on the same page. No mistakes. Slow down. He wants to keep the tempo going, and it usually backfires on them. And they end up like they had tonight, kicking a field goal, or in the Chiefs game earlier in the season, throwing a pick six. For what? But this is a big win for the Chargers. And this could be the start of I'm just giving you their final 4 games. This could be the start of a 5-game win streak that sends them into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams in the AFC. And nobody would want to see this team. If they get Bosa back here healthy to finish up this season, and, you know, they start to get some of these pieces back, nobody would want to play Justin Herbert. The guy is cerebral. He's a problem. When we start talking about best quarterbacks in the AFC, best quarterbacks in the league, he's one of the guys. So you don't want to see him in January. If they can just find a way in, I'm not saying that they're going to do a ton of damage, because when you can't stop the run and you don't run the football, usually that's not a good recipe for January into February, usually speaking, right? But when you got a guy like 10 as your signal caller, it changes everything. It changes everything. And you saw that tonight. You saw it tonight. So big win for the Chargers. They're now 7-6. The Dolphins, I'm really disappointed in their offensive execution. But you know what? Tonight was one of those weeks where I realized something that it's easy to overlook when you see the success that he's having. Same thing with the Giants. These are first-year head coaches we're talking about here. And sometimes you forget that because of the success that they had earlier in the season. And you're like, wow, they're finding a way to get it done. But Mike McDaniel, the last 2 weeks, has looked like a first-year head coach. There hasn't been the adjustments that have needed to be made. You know, I felt like there were opportunities tonight for them to maybe take advantage of some things that were, you know, being done to them by the Chargers. And I just thought that in 2 of their biggest games of the season against quality opponents on the road, they didn't show up and play the kind of football that put them in the position that they were in to potentially steal the AFC East. And now they find themselves not only reeling, not only 2 games now behind the Buffalo Bills for the division crown, which they're probably not going to sniff, but now you're fighting for your playoff lives. At 8-5, these Chargers are now 7-6. The Patriots can improve to 7-6 tomorrow night. The Jets are 7-6. You could be in some trouble. And I don't like the way Tua is playing. I don't like the way he's playing. I don't like the way that they're calling games. I don't think they're getting Mike Gesicki and guys with the talent and skill set that they have on their team, I don't think they're utilizing these guys effectively. They're not getting enough guys involved. The run game should be a much bigger part of this football team, and it's not. And you're putting too much pressure on Tua to do what Herbert did tonight. He's not that guy. Tua is a distributor. He is not a load bearer. That's Justin Herbert. You can put the team on his shoulders and he can carry that load. That is not Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa is a distributor. Get the football in the hands of playmakers and let them do the rest. And I felt like the last 2 weeks, they've asked Tua to be something that he's not, and it hasn't fared well for them. And yeah, I know he's dealing with an ankle injury, and there may be some other circumstances there. And it's just nobody wants to hear that. Find a way to get it done, and they haven't done that the last 2 weeks. The run game hasn't been as effective the last 2 weeks. I still am wondering why they're not getting Mike Gesicki more involved. I look at this team, and I'm looking at their wins right now because I'm starting to question everything I've felt about this Dolphins team. I told you we're going to find out a lot about the Dolphins against the 49ers and then here against the Chargers. Because I felt like this was a trap game for them. Like the last week's game against the 49ers, you're going to find out a lot about both teams. And then Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. Brock Purdy comes in and he does you, and you don't respond. You get hit with a haymaker. They got hit with a haymaker. You got hit with a haymaker. I mean, literally, you scored on the very first play of the game, 75-yard touchdown. They got hit with a haymaker. They got up off the canvas, and they were able to fight their way back. And then they hit you with a haymaker, and you didn't respond. They've beaten the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bills, the Steelers, the Lions, the Bears, the Browns, the Texans. So when you look at their wins, and the reason we respected the Dolphins is because of some of their early work, right? The Ravens, after trailing, remember, they were getting their asses cut in that game, okay? Their asses were getting cut in that game. It was 35-14 heading into the fourth quarter, okay? Let's not forget that. And they just had this furious comeback and won that game 42-38. But, they got some respect there, and then they turn around and they beat the Bills in a game that they were thoroughly outplayed and dominated. We've chronicled this already. The Bills had like 500 yards of total offense to the Dolphins, like 235. The Dolphins had like 39 plays to the Bills' 90 plays in the game. Like, the Bills just couldn't get out of their own way with turnovers and failed fourth downs and mistakes, and they lost that game. But they won the game. You can't take anything away from Miami. But those are the games that gave them the respect that they ultimately got. Then they just beat teams that they were supposed to beat. They got their asses handed to them by the Jets. Granted, there was no Tua in the game, right? There was no Tua in that, or the Bengals game, or the Dolphins, or the Vikings game for that matter at home, when they played some of the better teams that they've seen on their schedule. However, they beat the Steelers. It wasn't pretty. That was a Sunday night game, but they got it done. They beat the Lions. They beat the Bears. These are all, teams that are under 500 on the season. The Browns, the Texans. They've built up a rep off of beating bad teams, which you're supposed to do in this league. I don't discredit teams for beating bad teams. The reason bad teams are bad is because the better teams in the league beat them. And make sure that there are, tiers, and so they took care of business. But what you want to see from a team like Miami is when they play better teams, they rise to the occasion. They haven't done that this season. When you look at their resume, and again, I hate to bring up games where Tua wasn't involved. That's a tough ask, but you play the Dolphins. You play the Vikings, you lose. You play the Jets earlier this season. Again, no Tua, but you get your ass. You didn't just lose. You got your ass handed to you by the Jets, 40-17. The Bengals beat you. Tua was around for, half of that game. And these last 2 weeks, you lose at the 49ers. You lose at the Chargers. I think you're going to lose at the Bills. It wouldn't even shock me if you lost to the Packers the week after the Bills game. I could see the Dolphins not making the playoffs. Keep it a buck with you. I mean, you're probably going to lose, drop to 8-6 next week. You got the Packers at home. You should win that game. You should win that game. Are you going to win that game? I don't know. I don't trust you anymore. I'm losing faith in what you're doing. And, you know, this could just be a first-year head coach running out of gas. Running out of gas. Had this thing going, and you get to the end of the season, and you're running out of gas as a head coach. And it feels like that's where the Dolphins are trending right now. But we'll see. This was a tough one, man, because the Chargers were reeling. Chargers had lost how many games? I think 3 out of the last 4 the Chargers had lost. Let's see. They lost to the Raiders. They beat the Cardinals. They lost to the Chiefs. And they lost to the 49ers. They had lost 3 out of 4. They were reeling. And they were without Derwin James. They were without Bryce Callahan. They were without Sebastian Joseph Day in this game, who is their best defensive lineman right now. So the thought was, the prevailing thought was, oh, they're going to get run on for sure tonight with no Sebastian Joseph Day. They're going to get run on for sure. No Derwin James. That means Mike Gesicki and company should be eating in that secondary, eating that secondary up, right? I don't know if Mike Gesicki had more than 2 targets in this game, if that. Mike Gesicki, I mean, I just would assume with no Derwin James, you should be able to take advantage of their linebackers and safeties. Mike Gesicki had 2 targets, hit it right on the head, no catches. Really disappointed in the Dolphins in this game, and I'm starting to question, are they truly a playoff caliber team or not? With Tyreek Hill having a bum ankle, that really stings because he's such a huge part of what they do. We'll see what happens. They got a quick turnaround. They play on Saturday next week against the Bills. They don't win that game, they drop to 8-6. That'll be 3 straight losses for this Dolphins football team. And again, pending what happens behind them, but the Jets already spanked them once. So Jets own the head-to-head right now. They could go from a convincing 4 seed in the AFC to, at one point, they were the 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 seed. Then they were a convincing 4, like they're definitely making it. Then they became the 6 seed, and they felt locked into the 6 seed. Now they're still the 6, but they're reeling, and they could go from a lock just 3 weeks ago to, you're on the outside looking in, and you need to do some work to get back in. Tough place to be if you're a Dolphins fan, but that's where you are, and we'll see what they do with the remaining schedule that they have. It is not going to be easy. As I just mentioned, we took a look at their schedule. They got the Bills, then they got the Packers, then they have the Patriots, then they have the Jets. So they've got, it's really heavy on divisional contests. At the Bills, at the Patriots, home for the Jets, with the Packers sandwiched in between. So of their 4 games they have remaining, 2 on the road, 2 at home. But 2 out of the 3 division games that they have are on the road. So the beauty of it is they've beaten the Bills already. They've beaten the Patriots already. They haven't beaten the Jets. They've got a chance to finish strong in the division. And if they do that, they will make the playoffs. And you know what? It's a good litmus test for them too, because everybody in their division is good. There are no pushovers in that division. And if they want to go to the playoffs, they need to earn it. And the division is going to make them do that. So I'm anxious to see how they handle these final 4 weeks of the season. So I digress. Let's get to your comments. I enjoyed my team's bye week. There are no more bye weeks. Every team, all 32 will be playing the remainder of the season, as this was the last week for byes. So now let's get it on. All right, it's on and popping now, and Bart Scott can't wait. So you guys know what it is. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Glad to have you. Looking forward to chopping it up with you. If you are a veteran of the Louie T Network, then you know how this goes. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. We'll get to as many comments as we can. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do so. Let's get to the comment section. We start off with Barry Curtis Jr. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Panthers did us a huge solid today. Yes, they did, Barry Curtis Jr. Yes, they did. And it was amazing watching that game, how it started. You know, Panthers strike first, then they get an interception. They score a touchdown. They're up 10-0. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be nice if the Panthers went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks? Wouldn't that be grand? Remember, this is the funny thing. I do this all the time. Oh, this team's going to win. Remember, we did it last week with the Seahawks. Remember? Oh, they're going to beat the Rams. The Rams suck, even though it's family business. And I made sure to point that out. I'm like, the Rams stink. They're going to beat the Rams. They almost lost to the Rams, but they pulled it out, which is the same thing that Dallas did today. Like, oh, my God, they're going to crush the Texans. They barely escaped the Houston Texans. I think the score was identical to that of what the Seahawks score was, if I'm not mistaken. I think theirs was 27-24. This one was 27-23 when Dallas won. But still, no here nor there. It still was a lot closer of a ball game than we anticipated. Same as I said, the Panthers are coming off of a bye. They're playing inspired football for their interim head coach, Steve Wilks. They're dangerous. They play defense. But all of their wins, all 4 of their wins previous to today's contest, came at home. Okay. And 3 of their 4 wins came at home against teams in the division. So my thought process was, hey, while I think the Panthers are going to have a shot in this game, they're going on the road. I don't like their chances because they haven't proven to me that they can go and beat a quality opponent on the road. They've done that at home. Okay. Haven't proven that they can do it on the road. So I wasn't willing to make a bet that they were going to do it here. And then they go in there. And I thought once Seattle showed life, and I think the score was 20-17, I think, or it might have been 17. Let me check the score. Because there was a point where I said, okay, this was cute, but DK Metcalf caught a touchdown. I do remember that. And that's when I thought they were going to catch him and pass him at some point. So let's see. It was 17. It was 20-14 when DK Metcalf scored that touchdown right before halftime. And I said, they're gonna come back and beat them. And then they got a field goal, did Seattle, and made it 20-17. I said, yep, here they come. And after that, Carolina put the clamps down defensively on the Seahawks, and they started running the football. It's like they wore them down and end up beating them 30-24. And the 30-24 isn't even indicative of how dominant they were after that field goal to start the third quarter. It is not indicative of how dominant the Panthers were defensively. I mean, they swarmed all over Geno Smith. Geno Smith looked like the old Geno Smith in this game. He seemed flustered and rattled. He threw picks. He almost threw another pick or 2. I think J.C. Horn got his hands on one and just wasn't able to get his second foot in bounds, and he bobbled it a little bit. But they were all over Geno Smith, and they ran the ball down the Seahawks' throat. It feels like they did, at least. Let me go and check the numbers. Feel like Tua Hubbard had a really big game, it felt like. 14 carries, 74 for Tua, 21 carries, 74 yards. So both of the backs had 74. They ran for 223 yards, did the Panthers in that game. They wore down Seattle. And yeah, they did a huge solid. Now the Seahawks have 6 losses. And when you start looking at it, I told you guys there was someone that either super chatted me or left a comment. I think they just left a comment under one of the Washington videos, and they said, if the Lions beat the Vikings, look out for the Lions. And I'm assuming that person had already looked at the Lions' remaining schedule and said, if they can get past Minnesota, they're going to have a chance. And I looked at the Lions' schedule and I said, oh, shit, that person wasn't bullshitting. I knew they were going to be. I picked them, and I told you they were going to beat Minnesota. They should have beaten Minnesota the first time. They're playing exceptional football, are the Lions, but they still have 7 losses. So their margin for error is slim, right? Slim, but their schedule, their remaining schedule is not tough. So when I look at a team like Detroit, I'm saying, oh my God, it's not just the teams that I've, shrunk the field to in, New York, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco. You may have to widen that pool to include the Detroit Lions, who are now 6-7 on the season, but have won like 5 out of their last 6 games. And they're playing extraordinary football. And the one loss is on Thanksgiving to the Buffalo Bills in a game in which they actually dominated and just couldn't find a way to win. So Seattle's loss today was more helpful to a team like Detroit. Like, it helps us because it puts us one step closer to making the playoffs. Because now Seattle has 6 losses. We only have 5, which is why the tie starts to come into play. But I was never focused on Seattle. I was always focused on the Giants. They were our end. They are our end when it's all said and done. If we beat the Giants this weekend coming up, whatever happens after that, we've put ourselves in a position to make the playoffs. We just got to take care of business. The Seahawks losing helps our case, but to me, they're more helping out a team like the Giants or even the Lions. Somebody's not going to make it. Of the 3 teams, San Francisco's winning that division. I told you guys that a month ago. See, San Francisco's winning that division. So it's 3 teams for 2 spots. That's what it's been. I think you have to add that 4th team in there now in Detroit. And I feel like if Seattle had won, then Detroit still is, they're at bay. Because you're dealing with 3 5-loss teams and Detroit's at 7. You're not really that close. With 4 games left, you're 2 back in the loss column. That's a lot of ground to have to make up. Well, now with the Seahawks losing, they're 1 game back in the loss column of Seattle. Now, Seattle owns the tiebreaker over them because they went to Detroit, scored 48 points, and beat the Lions in a shootout, 48-45. However, they're 1 game back in the loss column. And with the Giants and Washington playing, someone's going to get a 6th loss unless there's a second tie. The assumption is someone's getting a 6th loss next week. So that puts Detroit right in the mix, and that's why I feel like Seattle losing was a bigger help to a team like Detroit than it was a team like Washington. But I'll take it. Seattle losing puts Washington a step closer to making the playoffs, but none of this matters if Washington doesn't take care of their own business. And that's ultimately what it's going to boil down to is, can you do the things you need to do to put your team in a position to play bonus football? There's no bigger game in the Week 15 slate than the Sunday night game, Washington hosting the Giants. Haven't even looked at the other games on the slate. There isn't one bigger. And it's not just because my team is playing in that particular game, but this has massive playoff implications. Does this game between the Giants and Washington? Massive. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, stress-free football watching is the best, especially when you end up with the 6th seed. Got to take care of business next week. Hashtag HTTC. Exactly. All of this means nothing if you go and you lay down and have one of those nights where we just don't know what the hell happened. Like I told you, after watching that Giants game back 3 or 4 times, I still don't understand how we didn't win the game. Like we dominated them, but we could have easily have lost the game too. So stress-free football is the best. There's nothing like it. The only thing that tops watching football during a bye week, when your team is as stressful as our team is, because they always play close games, the only thing that's better is if you win on Thursday. The stress is on Thursday, but you've got a win in your back pocket. That's the only thing that's better than watching it during a bye week. But like you said, I couldn't have said it any better. Gotta take care of business next week. Period. End of discussion. Indigenous Brother, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Chase, family business, playoff position, let's go. There's a lot of things that we do have to discuss this week, and every single one of them you just touched on, and then there's more. This is hopefully the conclusion of Chase Young Watch. This is definitely the biggest family business that we've participated in, and I've mentioned this since 2012. Honestly, I mean, we had some big games in 2015 when we clinched the division, but nothing like this. The 2020 game against the Eagles was anticlimactic for them. I mean, we needed it, right? But the division was terrible. It was a means to an end, ending the season in a terrible division and just finding a way to get it done. It wasn't pretty how we got it done, but we got it done. This is totally different. We have an identity. We've established who we are. We know what we're trying to accomplish. We're playing good football. We're a dangerous team in a wide open conference. Why not us? We've been saying that for a while now, and I mean it. Why not us? And there's plenty of reasons why you can say, why not us? I could give you 15 reasons why not us. Touche. Absolutely. But I can give you 15 more of why it could be us. So, Chase, family business, playoff position. Let's go. I'm ready. Sign me up. This is what as a fan, this is what you want. I mean, you prefer to be in the Eagles shoes, right? Or in the Cowboys shoes, but sign me up. Shit, we got a chance. That's all I can ask for. Just like I tell you every week, just give me a chance in the fourth quarter with the football. Just give me a chance. We're getting that chance right here with the playoffs. We're into December. That's the fourth quarter of the season with a chance. At home, what more could you ask for? Tony P56. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Tony P56 writes, Lou, check your Twitter yet. Gift coming your way. I saw it. I thought I responded to you. I might have got you mixed up with somebody else. I thought I responded already, but apparently if you're telling me to check my Twitter, that means I did not. I will definitely hit you up and let you know what's really good there. I appreciate you as always, Tony P56. The Phillies Ace 34, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Louie, what's up, my friend? You should be nervous. You may have won in our house. Is it possible that victory woke us up to propel us forward? I want Washington because if it happens again, repeat of week 3. Look, that loss might have refocused you, which is great. And you can spin a loss however you want. And I'm glad we beat you. I don't regret beating you. I don't know if it woke you up, this, that, or the third. That doesn't, bother me any. At the end of the day, I would love nothing more than to play you once more. That is the goal, because in order to get to you, if you continue on the track that you're on, that means I would have had to have won a playoff game or 2, depending on where we finish in the playoff seeding, right? If we make the postseason, if we play bonus football, it may be a while before we get to the Eagles. It may be until the championship game. We may not see you until the championship game, but if you get that 7 seed, there's no doubt, because you get the 7 seed, then we got to see you in the divisional round. We can't avoid you to the championship game. But you get the 6 seed, right? I don't have to see the Eagles until, the Commanders wouldn't have to see them potentially, depending on what the 7 seed did. 7 seed win, then that who would the Eagles would be playing in the divisional round. So, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I would love to see you guys. There's no repeating of week 3. You're not getting that team. That team's dead. That week 3 team that you saw is dead and gone, and it's not coming back. 8 sacks, 9 sacks, whatever the hell it was, that shit's dead, man. We've got an identity. We've established who we are. You'll never see that team again. And the defense is much more confident and competent than it was back in week 3. We're getting reinforcements back. I'll just tell you this. Of all the teams in the division, and we'll see what Dallas does. That's going to be a great matchup on Christmas Eve. But of all the teams in the division, we should be the one you want to see the least, because we match up very well with Jalen Hurts. He had one of his best games against us. He had one of his worst games against us. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'll just tell you this. The Eagles are the furthest thing from my mind. We don't play y'all again in the regular season, so I can give 2 shits about the Eagles, to be honest with you. I'm not thinking about y'all. I got a big game against the Giants this week. We got the 49ers after that. We got the Browns after that, and then we got the Cowboys after that. That's what I'm concerned with. If we see y'all, we see y'all. If we don't, we don't. I'm not even tripping off of that. I hope we see y'all, but it's a lot of football. It's enough football in the way of that happening that I can't even wrap my brain around. I get on my wife all the time about trying to bring up stuff that's 3 weeks down the road. I'm like, look, I can't. My brain it doesn't work that way. You can't talk to me about something that's happening in 3 weeks. Talk to me about what's happening in 3 days, 5 days from now, 7 days. 7 is even a little much for me, but I can do 7. Anything outside of that, man, it's in one ear, out the other. So we'll see. But you guys are playing great football, but you've been doing it all season long for the most part. John Livingston. The real test is going to be Dallas. If you pass that test with flying colors, then I think there's a real conversation to be had about the Eagles. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, JL Smooth, writes, hope all is well, Lou. We won an ugly one. Rousseau, though. What did I say, Lou? That's my guy. 2 sacks. Dolphins pass D is weak. You called it. I was when I was watching the game and he got a sack, I said to myself, damn, my guy JL Smooth said that he was going to need Gregory Rousseau to step up, and he did that. This is what you asked for. You said after the Dolphins beat you in week 3, I believe it was, they got to come back to Buffalo in December. We'll be ready. Here it is. Here's the opportunity that you saw coming early in the season. And they may have a weak pass defense, but the weather in Buffalo, it changes everything. It changes everything. That weather was not ideal today against the Jets. And while Buffalo may be more comfortable in those conditions, it's still the same conditions for everyone. The Bills may handle it better, but they're still cold. It's still wet. The ball's still wet. It's tough for everybody involved. So we'll see. Obviously, advantage goes to the Bills playing in that environment. So you definitely want an ugly one. Josh Allen's legs continue to be a lifesaver for you guys. His legs were huge in this game. But again, there are no style points attached to victories in this league. This isn't college football. Just put it in the left-hand column and move forward. And that's what y'all did today. You exacted a bit of revenge against a team that had gotten you earlier this season. You're looking to do it again next week. See if you guys can have the same outcome that you did today. Christopher McLaughlin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you. Likewise. What is the one potential AFC and NFC wildcard team that you think could make a surprise playoff run, and why? Again, hard to really say because we don't know who is what. Like, that's a question that you ask once the field is somewhat set. I mean, we're playing, we're juggling, teams at this point. I mean, today we went into to play with the Cowboys 5, the Giants 6, and the Seahawks 7. We leave the 1 o'clock hour with the Cowboys 5, the Seahawks 6, and the Commanders 7. And then after the 4 o'clock games, Cowboys 5, Commanders 6, and the Giants are now 7. So, I mean, same thing on the AFC side of the bracket. You go in, and if I'm not mistaken, the Bengals are 5, the Dolphins were 6, and the Jets were 7. And you come out of Sunday's games, and it's the Bengals at 5, the Dolphins at 6, and now the Chargers are at 7. And if the Patriots win tomorrow, then it's the Bengals at 5, the Dolphins at 6, and the Patriots at 7. So it's hard to say who's doing what. Obviously, in the AFC, to me, the Bengals are the team, and they could still win that division. And I still think they're going to win that division. I think ultimately, Baltimore, they could have the same thing happen to them that happened to them last year, where they go from firmly in the playoffs to not even making it. Now, with how competitive the AFC is, and with the Ravens being, I believe, 8-4 right now, and just the only reason that they are above the Bengals, who also is 8-4, is because they've beaten them once earlier in the season. I think it was a Sunday night game, like 19-17, if I'm not mistaken, was the final score there. Late Justin Tucker field goal gave them the victory. But they should have lost today. Mitchell Trubisky threw 3 picks. I sat there, I watched that game, and I thought to myself, I wonder if the outcome would have been different if they had Kenny Pickett playing. He got slammed down and knocked out of the game with a concussion, and Trubisky came in and soiled himself. I mean, absolutely pissed down his leg. And then Huntley got hurt. They had to bring in Anthony Brown. What if Huntley's got a significant injury? What are they going to do at quarterback? Like, it could be the Ravens and not. I've said this. I think just like I said with the 49ers winning, I think the Bengals are going to win that division. So I can't even look at them as a wild card right now, even though that's what they are. I think they're going to end up winning that division and hosting a playoff game. But in the AFC, I don't even respect any of the wild card teams other than Cincinnati, to be honest with you. I don't think I like the way Baltimore is playing football, even though their defense is playing better of late, but they haven't played anybody offensively, which is why their defense looks better. They played Carolina. They played Jacksonville is okay on offense, but they played Carolina. They played the Steelers. They played the Broncos. These are 3 out of their last 4 opponents with Jacksonville smushed in there. That's why the defense looks better. I'm not sure. When they played Jacksonville, look at what the defense did. They didn't do enough. So, if you force me to pick a team in the AFC as a wild card, I'd give you the Chargers if they can make it because of Herbert. Even though he hasn't played in the playoff game and playoff intensity is different than regular season, that dude's a beast. You give him an opportunity, you let him in, and just like Burrow last year, you let a young stallion in there, and all bets are off. I could see the chart, and again, they're different because the Chargers don't run the football and they don't stop the run, and that's problematic this time of the year. But I'd say Chargers on one side, and in the NFC, I mean, you could say Dallas, they're dangerous, right? Even though they almost lost today, they're dangerous because they can score points, and their defense, if they get a lead, which is always a problem with Dallas, they start slow. And that doesn't allow them to play into their strength, which is their pass rush. I've said this about every team in the NFC East except for Washington. You can run the football on them. You can run the football on the Giants. You can run the football on the Cowboys. You can run the football on the Eagles. And I know Eagles fans are like, hey, we fixed our run defense. Bullshit. I don't believe you. You need more people. Sorry. You can run the football on the Philadelphia Eagles. And so I'm not sure that Dallas is that team. Dak's turning the ball over. Me and Boss was watching the game today, and I said, Dak's good for at least one. He turned it over twice. Should have cost them the game, honestly. The Texans stink. And I thought it was poor coaching on the part of Lovie Smith to not take the field goal, but that's another conversation for another day. The bottom line is, I'll take it just depends on who gets in. That's why I said this is a tough one to answer, because if Detroit gets in, they're effing dangerous because they can score. And I don't love their defense, and I think you can move the ball on them, but they're gonna make it tough on you because they can score, and they're the most efficient red zone team in football. And that means there isn't a huge margin for error in terms of scoring points. You can't get in the red zone and kick field goals, and they're going in the red zone and scoring touchdowns. You'll lose. Washington, I've said this already. Washington's style of play, though, it's dangerous to anybody in the league, because when you're number one in the league in time of possession, what that says is that you're grinding and grounding teams to a halt. You're sitting on the football, you're possessing it, you're keeping your defense fresh, you're keeping the other team's offense off the field. Now, our problem is, if you could combine our time of possession with red zone efficiency, if you could combine those two, we'd be a dangerous team. But the problem is, we'll have a 12-minute drive and settle for a field goal. Not a 12-minute drive, excuse me, a 12-play, 7-minute drive, and we'll settle for a field goal. Or, as we did against the Giants, not get any points at all. I like Washington on the NFC side. I like the Chargers on the AFC side. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Duncan writes, 5 public message. Stay off the drugs, T. Jalen Hurts is top 3 QB. You said not even top 10. Come on, man. He's playing at a top 10 level this season. Top 3? Are you on drugs? A top 3 quarterback in the league? So he's better than Herbert, Mahomes, and Burrow. Now get out of here, man. This is why I can't have conversations with y'all, because y'all say crazy stuff, and then y'all try to accuse me of being delusional and on drugs and this, that, and then you say things like that. How am I supposed to take you serious when you say things like that? Danny Dockwall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Or excuse me, Donnie Darkwa. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Donnie writes, Cowboys fan, but enjoy your analysis. Salute. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate that. Truly do. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JP writes, don't mind me, bro. I'm just here for the Louisms. Okay. I appreciate you. Mike Stevenson II, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Big Lou, what's up, Mike? Put up a 40 burger today, my boy. MVP. Jalen Hurts was impressive again. And then I think you couple what he did with what Mahomes did, even though Mahomes did some crazy shit. We all saw the pass that he threw. But Mahomes threw 3 interceptions, I think, today. think if it wasn't 3, it was definitely 2, but I think he threw 3. Now they won the game, and he was still spectacular, but he threw 3 picks. And you know, when you get to the MVP, we look at a lot of things. Numbers are one of them. Hurts keeps his interception total down. He adds another touchdown. I think 2 touchdown passes, adds another touchdown run. They win convincingly. It's going to be hard to keep him from winning this thing if he continues down the path he's on. He's got, again, I think it ultimately, he's got a chance on Christmas Eve against the Cowboys to lock it up. That's what I think it'll ultimately come down to. Is that game, all eyes will be on the Eagles and the Cowboys, and everyone's going to be looking to see how Hurts plays in that particular game. Because that'll be the biggest test he's had probably since the last time they played the Cowboys. You could argue defensively, what he did to the Packers was phenomenal, and the Packers defensively, solid group, but the Colts, they, obviously that ended up being a lot closer game than people thought it was going to be, but this will be the biggest challenge he's had probably since the first Dallas game. And, obviously the Washington game, he had a challenge in front of him. Didn't really perform all that great, but he plays well like he did today against the Giants, against Dallas. I think he's going to win it, which is crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. I can't believe I'm even having a conversation about Jalen Hurts winning MVP. It just doesn't make sense to me, but this season hasn't made sense. So, Chaotic, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Chaotic, thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. 49ers defense, gulp. That 49ers defense is legit, man. 49ers are a really good team, and this is what we talked about with them. About a month ago, I said, man, look out for the 49ers, and I kept talking about the 49ers, and you could see this coming. I think what's even more impressive with what the 49ers are doing is the fact they're doing it with Brock Purdy at quarterback. I think that's what's most impressive. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Vincent Coe, writes, Lou, who's the ceiling pro comparison for Lawrence for you again? He balled out today. I don't remember who I comped him to. I got my binder around here, but I'm not sure what I did with all the notes that I took from that year's draft class. I can't remember. You'd have to go back to that draft video that I did and to see who the comp was for him. Trevor Lawrence is going to be really good. I told you of all those quarterbacks, and we had this conversation on the podcast, last week, when I talked about, the youngins being, in a bit of trouble and somebody needed to throw him a life raft. I said the one guy of that whole entire group that I wasn't really all that concerned with was Trevor Lawrence. He's in a healthy environment finally. He's in a really good situation. They're continuing to build to. How about Evan Ingram today? What? That's the Evan Ingram that the Giants were hoping to get all those years. Lawrence is in a great situation with a head coach that's really going to develop him, mentor him, really put him in a position to have success in this league. Trevor Lawrence is in a really good spot. And now what it boils down to for him is just consistency. 1 week he looks like this. The next week he, is missing easy throws and turning it over. And so you just got to get to a place where he's more consistent. And that'll come over time. I truly believe that. Yeah, he was outstanding today. 1,800 shots. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, should I go with Chase Young jersey or with 21? That is totally up to you. I personally wouldn't invest in a Chase Young jersey just yet. That's just me. I would hold off on that. But we'll see. I'm a huge Chase Young fan. Think the guy is super talented, and I want to see what he looks like. You know, next year is going to be the test. I think a lot of people are putting a lot on Chase Young coming back, and I don't know if there's really going to be much of an impact by him coming back. We'll see. Again, hard to really say. Hard to really say. Vincent Co. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Vincent Co. who writes, I know Sauce is very impressive, but what made Stingley drafted higher than him again? I was a big Stingley guy. Just from a fundamental standpoint, height, weight, speed, like Stingley had it all. Like Sauce was cool, but Sauce played at Cincinnati, and not to, shit on Cincinnati, but it's not a Power 5 conference. He played against some good teams and some talented guys, but nothing like Stingley, not like the gauntlet Stingley faced every week in the SEC, essentially, for the last few years. Yeah, he dealt with some injuries. That's well documented, and he's dealing with some injuries right now, which is why he hasn't played the last 3 weeks. But I think Stingley has immense talent, and if he is right. I remember the same conversation. It was a similar conversation. This is how I felt about Sauce versus Stingley. I remember J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain II in the draft prior to those two in 2021. And I remember telling anybody that would listen, J.C. Horn is the flashy, guy with all the measurables and all of the stuff that people get excited about, during the draft period, this time of the year, when we get into, or that time of the year, rather, when you get into February and the combine and March and the pro days, people get excited about that kind of stuff. But when you put on the tape what the guy did from September through, December, it was clear to me that Patrick Surtain II was the better of the two corners. But, people fall in love with the flash, the glitz, and the glam. That's kind of how I felt about those two. Sauce Gardner for me was the guy that everybody was going to fall in love with. He's long. He's got all this range. He's fast, this, that, and the third. I'm like, if you put on the tape and you watch Derek Stingley, there's no denying that of the two, he's the more polished and, to me, the better of the two. I mean, I've watched Sauce Gardner this year, and I'm super impressed with what he's done, but he gets away with a lot of shit, like mugging dudes. And I'm like, this dude's getting the respect of a Jalen Ramsey, and he's only been in the league, 10 weeks. Like, what the hell is going on right now? But that's a testament to him. He's a really good football player. I felt like Stingley, had the complete package. And if he was healthy, dude could come in and be a Patrick Peterson. You could come in and be a Marshawn Lattimore. You could come in and be one of those dudes that could erase a receiver, a Stephon Gilmore. Not to say that Sauce Gardner can't, but I thought Stingley had the better ability to do that. So we'll see. Those will be two guys that you'll watch throughout their careers, and they'll probably always be compared to one another because they were in that same draft class. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. JP, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Right, gotta beat the G-Men next week, Lou. Also want to vent about my Red Sox letting Xander Bogaerts leave for the Padres, but I'll save that for your podcast. Hey, a lot of teams are spending big money in MLB, man. Like, if you look, your Red Sox spend a lot of money all the time, and so you're not gonna win them all. You're not gonna win them all. You lost your boy to the Dodgers a couple of off seasons ago, and now you lose Xander. It just happens that way, man. Y'all get y'all fair share of high price free agents that y'all bring in. You win some, you lose some. Um, 1,800 shots. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Was asking because I'll be at the game Sunday. I already got the Chase Young jersey, but I think I'll rock 21 for good luck. I mean, if you already got the Chase Young jersey, then yeah, why not rock it? You know that'll be his first game back. If 21 is lucky, then just wear that. There's nothing to discuss. If you feel like that's the lucky jersey, if you've got experience with that jersey getting the job done. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But if there's no superstition or there's no luck one way or the other, there's no advantage to wearing one over the other. If you think Chase is going to play in the game, why not rock the Chase Young 99? Think he's coming back for his first game this season. Why not support the young fella by throwing on his jersey? All right. Amar, I'm going to take a few comments, hashtags before we get out of here. Amar, 2 times official, writes, Miami needs to help Tua with a run game. And they have done that recently, but tonight was really, let's go back. I think the Cleveland game was when their first game after they traded for Jeff Wilson. Excuse me, if I'm not mistaken. And so I thought they ran it effectively in that game. Scored 39 points against the Browns. Jeff Wilson Jr., 17 carries, 119 yards. Raheem Mostert, 8 carries, 65 yards. They rushed for almost 200 yards in that game. I thought that was the game where they started to turn the corner as a rush offense. They had just traded for Jeff Wilson. Let me see. I'm going to go back 1 week prior to that against the Bears and see if they ran it that game. I don't recall them running it that game, though. Yeah, they didn't really have success that game. I think that was the first game Wilson had come over, but the Browns game was the one where I said, okay, they about to figure out this running game. And if they do, that's going to make them super dangerous. See what they did against the Texans the following week after the Browns game where they ran. Not really. They didn't really run it well against the Texans. So, I thought that maybe that Browns game was fool's gold. I thought that was the game where they started to turn the corner, but clearly that was not the case. And they've struggled to really run it with any consistency. And to your point, Tua needs a run game. He's not Justin Herbert. I can't stress that enough. He's not capable of taking a team, strapping them to his back, and carrying them. He needs help. Most quarterbacks in this league do. There aren't many guys that are capable of taking an offense and carrying them by himself. There aren't many of those in the league. Amar, 2 times official, writes, San Francisco with Brock Purdy may be even better than with Jimmy G because of his sneaky athleticism. That's a legit scary team, to be honest. Can't wait to play them, though. Me and my dad were talking about the exact same thing. Like, Brock Purdy had a touchdown run today, and I turned to Boss and I said, Jimmy G ain't doing that shit. And he said, hell no. So you see the problems that Brock Purdy can create, and some of the dilemmas that teams face when playing them now. Look, he's young. I still think he's going to make some mistakes if you apply pressure. I'm so glad to hear that Deebo Samuel's injury is not thought to be serious. You hate to see that. You just absolutely hate to see something like that occur. So glad anytime a dude gets hurt and he disregards the football, like F this football, I'm in pain, you always fear the worst. The last time I saw a dude say F this ball was Santonio Holmes out in space. I want to say it was against the Jets. He's breaking a dude down. I think it was his Achilles. It just popped. He went down in a heap and he dropped the football. And the dude picked it up and scooped it and ran for a touchdown. You don't see dudes in that much pain to the point where they say F the football. He did that, so I knew it was serious. I'm glad it's not as serious as I thought it was when it first happened. They're dangerous. To your point, Brock Purdy adds an element of athleticism that Jimmy G just didn't. And so it makes them that much more potentially scared, which is why Trey Lance was supposed to work so well because of his athleticism and what that adds to the mix. Like you said, sneaky athleticism. Lamar, 2 times official, says, don't play 1 snap and we move up 2 slots. Feels good. It does. Indeed. Metaphor writes, Cowboys stink. Should have lost. Bucks blown out by Niners. Game turned early, down 7-0. Brady 65-yard touchdown to Evans taken back because of an O-line hold. Outcome different without that, I think. I mean, it was a huge play. Brady was amped after he threw the touchdown. He's running down the field, and then he realizes it's a holding or a penalty on the play. Turns around and sees that it's against them, and wouldn't you know it, Shit was never the same, to your point. We see it all the time in games. That's a huge momentum swing. It happened in week 1 to the Packers. First play of the game, the Vikings had already gone down, scored a touchdown at 7-0. Rodgers gets the first snap of their season offensively and launches it 50 yards in the air to the rookie Christian Watson. And if he catches it, it's a walk-in touchdown. He drops it. They lose that game like 20-7. Changed everything. But the Bucs are struggling on the offensive line. They're struggling, and that's a big play in the game, to your point. Cowboys don't stink. The Cowboys' biggest problem right now, and actually they have multiple problems, but the biggest problem right now is that they're getting off to these slow starts. I brought this up during the Super Friends stream, and my guy John Cedillo, love him to death, came on and said these slow starts are a problem. We have to get this rectified. If we play better teams, it's going to cost us. And I told my dad, I said, you're going to win this game. Our prediction, he thought that they were going to blow them out in the first half. I said, you're going to struggle with them in the first half, and you're going to extend the lead out in the third and run away and hide in the fourth. And we were both wrong because, and this is the other problem the Cowboys had. And I told Boss, I said, here's your problem. Dak turns the damn ball over too much now. All of a sudden, Dak was never a high turnover guy. Never really has been. I think he's going to set a career high in interceptions this season. I don't know what his career high total is, but he's got 8 in the last like 4 or 5 games. He's turned into Taylor Heineke, where you expect at least 1 turnover every game. That's not where you want to be. Where you're saying, hey, just get the shit out of the way early so we can overcome it and circumvent that turnover and keep it pushing. He turned it over twice in this game. The Cavante Turpin fumble was the one that set it off because they were dominating the Texans. They had already scored, got a 3-and-out to getting the ball back. I don't think the Texans are going to stop them. And he fumbles, and they score a touchdown, and then the rest is history. They were right in that ball game. I don't think the Cowboys stink. They just got to stop making mistakes. They're not good enough to make the kind of mistakes that they're making and beat better teams. So we'll see what happens. Bucs are in trouble, though. Got a super chat here from my guy, Craig Smith, the flight deck. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. If you're not watching my guy, Craig's channel, and he also is a contributor on other channels like the Lightning Round, but massive Chargers fan, does a great job on his channel and some other channels. Check his work out, though. He says, just a reminder, I'm at Acho's neck. Carry on. Acho is a big Justin Herbert. Hater is harsh, but I don't think my guy Craig thinks it's harsh. But he's always got something to say about Justin Herbert. And a lot of times people in the media like to hold quarterbacks wholly responsible for the entire team's failures, which to me is the worst thing you could do with a quarterback like Justin Herbert. He's being failed by that organization, yet he's still carrying them to a 7-6 record despite everything crumbling around him. Like, there's certain quarterbacks where you go, you can't hold him responsible for the rest of this foolishness that's going on. Herbert's one of those dudes. Like, when you see Aaron Rodgers and you see what's happening this shit, Rodgers is partly to blame for that shit. He's got his hand in that. I just can't bring myself to blame Herbert for anything. He just does so much for them, and they don't, ever give him the help that he needs from a play calling standpoint, from a head coaching standpoint, from guys staying healthy around him, offensive line in shambles, no running game, just so much he's got to overcome, and he does it anyway. I mean, there were times this season where there was no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, and they didn't have the tight end Gerald Everett in the game. And you're like, well, who the hell is he throwing the football to anyway? And he just finds a way. So my guy Craig can't stand for it. He won't allow Emmanuel Acho off the hook. Acho, man. He says he's at his neck. I can't wait to see it. I will carry on though. Chaotic. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes thoughts on Browns in 3 weeks? I can't bring myself to talk about the Browns game in 3 weeks because we got 2 games prior to that Browns game. And if we don't take care of business in those games, then that Browns game becomes more and more insignificant, or depending on how things are going, more and more significant. I would prefer that game to become more significant with us winning and having a chance to say clinch a playoff spot by beating the Browns. But I'll just tell you this, having watched them the 2 weeks with Deshaun Watson, he's going to change the way you have to defend them, but he's still a work in progress. He's still making mistakes. And the key is still to stop Nick Chubb. You stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in that rushing attack, you're going to beat the Cleveland Browns as long as you don't turn it over a whole bunch of times. You're going to beat them. You turn it over like the Texans did last week, you're going to have problems, and they're going to have a chance to beat you. But he'll be better by the time we see him, which is why you can't take what you've seen from him these first 2 weeks and expect that to be the case when we see them 2 more weeks down the road. He'll be more comfortable, more acclimated to the offense, and the players will be more acclimated to him and what he's doing. There'll be more reps in practice, more game reps. They'll be more comfortable, and they'll be more dangerous by the time we get to him. So, again, we'll see what happens. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member. Or my guy, Take Command for Life writes, this Giants game is the biggest at FedEx since 2012. I feel like that's the case. Absolutely. Hands down. Totally agree with you. I think this game has massive implications for all parties involved. And I want to see, one of the knocks on Washington over the years has been their inability to deal with success. This one is a big one, but I just look at all the things that they've done to this point, and I just think it's different this time around. I just think it's different, but we shall see. I like our chances second time around. I like our chances the second time around. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Been $1.30. I think that was the last super. So I think we can go ahead and get out of here. I got one more super chat here. This one is from Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, yeah, we're not beating San Francisco. Again, you didn't think we were beating Philadelphia. I shouldn't say that because you've predicted some things that either have or haven't come true to come to fruition, but you've been close. You've been pretty spot on. And I think you might have felt like we had a chance against Philadelphia. So I shouldn't say that. I'll just say this. Anything can happen, and I've already laid out all the reasons as to why. When you play the brand of football that we play, we got a chance every single week. We could lose to anybody because we don't score a lot of points. So you can lose to anybody when you don't score. But you can beat anybody because you can pull a team down to your level and shorten the game and score enough to win. And we've done that this season as well. So it goes both ways. You can lose to a team you got no business losing to because you don't score enough points. You can beat a team that you probably have no business beating because you stop them from scoring a whole hell of a lot of points because you controlled the ball. So we're going to have a chance against San Francisco, but we're going to have to play good ball. Take command for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I'm last. Okay, we'll see if that holds true. But with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, get out of here, and allow you guys to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted you. Chargers get the win tonight, 23-17 over the Dolphins. Shocked at how they were able to win. Not that they won the game. I told you guys before, when I gave you my prediction for the game, even though I picked the Dolphins, I said, this is the type of game that the Chargers win. I've watched enough Chargers football to know they lose to the Raiders. I picked them to lose that game because I said that's the kind of game they lose. And I said, this is the type of game that they win. You don't really think they are going to win. You don't expect them to win. They got injuries. You got every reason not to pick them. And that's when they show up and find a way to get it done. And that's exactly what they did in this game. But they're now 7-6. And if the playoffs started today, they would be the 7th seed. We'll see what happens. Pending what the Patriots outcome is tomorrow, the Chargers will remain the 7th seed. Meanwhile, the Dolphins dropped to 8-5 on the season. That's 2 losses in a row for the Miami Dolphins. They haven't looked good against better competition here of late. They're going on the road against Buffalo on a short turnaround on a Saturday. The Dolphins are trending in the wrong direction right now. Tyreek Hill injured his ankle in this game. It's not looking good for the Dolphins, but do not count them out. They have a lot of talent. We'll see if they can rebound next week on the road or even after that versus the Packers the following week. But they better figure it out and figure it out fast because these last 2 performances have not been it. And it's starting to look like the math ain't mathing for the Miami Dolphins. At one point, 8-3, chasing the Bills for that number 1 or chasing the Bills for the AFC East crown. Well, they've fallen off of that wagon at this point with the Bills now at 10-3. And now all of a sudden, what once looked like, they're a shoo-in for the postseason. Now they're clinging to a playoff spot. Now you got all these 7 and 6 teams knocking at your door. Before, you didn't even bother. Now you're looking through the peephole and wondering, should I open the door? We'll see what the Dolphins do. Anyway, I digress. Take Command for Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Take Command for Life writes, we should beat the Browns, but I'm worried. That again, so many things can change between then and now. When we first looked at the schedule a month ago, and started looking at teams down the road, we assumed the 49ers would have Deebo Samuel. He's not playing in the game against us next week. Or in 2 weeks, excuse me. I assure you of that. It changes the way you have to defend them. It changes the way you go about your business playing the 49ers. Anything can happen between then and now. I don't like talking about games that aren't right in front of us because too much can happen that can change the way you view a game. So, we'll see what happens again. Chaotic, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, Denver was like that insurance commercial. You almost had it. LOL. Did you see Russ today get knocked out of the game? That's a weird situation in Denver. I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll talk more about that on the podcast. But that is a crazy situation. Take Command for Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Take Command for Life. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. I was surprised because I didn't see the, logo, but I was like, people, do what they got to do. I wasn't tripping. But he says, forgot to renew this month. Had to hit it back. I appreciate you, man. I truly do appreciate you. You know what it is. You know the love. You know how it is to be a member of the MOBB. I don't have to go through the whole spiel with you, but it's just good to have you back where you belong with the squad. Welcome you aboard, and hopefully you're along for this ride because I see this ride not ending in early January. See this ride having a little bit of longevity to it, if you will, this year. We'll see. Anyway, I digress. You guys, get out of here. I'll see you tomorrow or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day. I'll see you, though. You guys take care. God bless. And as always, good night.
Louie T Network.